It's your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day, and I hope you guys are having a good one out there. Might actually be nice out today. We haven't had a nice day, and I can't remember how long. It's been about a week, I feel like. Lots of rain. That's okay. We need the rain. We like to say that. We need the rain, and we'll be okay. It's been nice out today so far, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of all that. Good show coming up. Jeff Day from the Star Tribune will join me. Timberwolves fan for a long time, Timberwolves follower for a long time, also Star Tribune, multi-platform editor and writer, does not in any way, shape, or form cover the Timberwolves, of course, but we'll explain kind of what it's like to be a Wolves fan right now that they have found this success this season, now that they have swept a playoff series against the Suns, now that they're getting ready to play the Nuggets in the next round of the playoffs starting Saturday in Denver. We'll go deep on the Wolves fandom, what it's like to be part of that right now, and we'll also go deep on Jeff's new story on name, image, and likeness and its impact on donors who now have to suddenly decide, am I going to support athletes or am I going to support the schools with my donation money, or am I going to have to do both? How does that sort itself out? What are they more inclined to support, these collectives, or are they going to keep donating to schools? So interesting story from Jeff, interesting conversation with Jeff. Stick around for that in just a minute. Got some NBA stuff at the end of the show. Watched a lot of the Knicks 76ers game, which was terrific last night. Unbelievable finish. Share a little bit of my thoughts on that. First, though, what did I miss? Twins won their 9th game in a row. The rally sausage in full effect. They beat the White Sox 6-5, coming back from a deficit again, scoring late again, getting just enough to win 6-5. 9 wins in a row. They used to be 7-13. Now they're 16-13. That is a huge, massive turnaround. Nothing but good news for the Twins, you would think. However, on Tuesday night, word started to emerge that Comcast was going to be dropping Bally Sports channels all across the country, including, of course, Bally Sports North. And I was thinking, come on, this isn't really going to happen. These guys will figure it out. This is the second largest cable carrier in the United States as of 2023. I think they had 14.1 million subscribers nationwide in 2023. What huge player in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, the large cable carrier here in the Twin Cities. A big way that people get the Twins, the Timberwolves, the Lynx, the Wild, anybody that you're going to watch on Bally Sports North. A lot of people watch it still on Comcast. It goes dark. It really went dark last night. As of last night, around 11 p.m., a lot of people who listen to the show, read me in the Star Tribune. I'd asked them, hey, can you kind of pay attention? I don't have Comcast. Can you pay attention? Is Comcast off your TV now? Started to go off for a lot of them around 11 o'clock last night. Still off this morning as of Wednesday morning around 7 a.m. So there you have it. Comcast dropping Bally Sports North, and now the statements, of course, are flying around. The Twins not happy. So the Twins, I got a statement from the Twins. The Twins are disappointed by this massive disruption for our fans who simply want to watch our games. This situation is a business negotiation between Comcast and Bally's. The Twins have no role or voice in this matter. We are hopeful the two parties are able to come to an agreement as soon as possible. Now, of course, it is possible that these, taking it off the air for now will spur some action at some point. You will notice that it didn't impact last night's game. People were still able to finish that game. But, Twins are on Bally Sports North virtually every game. Wolves, you got Wolves possibilities there at some point. If this is a longer term thing, things like that. Twins, though, Lynx, of course, coming up right now. This would be huge. This would be huge. Obviously, if they stay off. Comcast statement saying, we've been very flexible with Diamond Sports Group for months as they work through their bankruptcy proceedings, providing them with an extension on the Bally Sports regional networks last fall and a unilateral right to extend the term for another year, which they opted to not exercise. We'd like to continue carrying their networks, but they've declined multiple offers, and now we no longer have the rights to this programming. We will proactively credit our customers for the costs associated with them. Most will automatically receive $8 to $10 per month in credits. You're not going to believe this, but Diamond Sports sees it differently. A statement from Diamond Sports. It's disappointing that Comcast rejected a proposed extension that would have kept our channels on the air, and that Comcast indicated that it intends to pull the signals preventing fans from watching their favorite local teams. Comcast has refused to engage in substantive discussions despite Diamond offering terms similar to those reached with much larger distributors of ours. We are a fans-first company. Deep breath there, my own deep breath, and will continue to seek an agreement with Comcast to restore broadcasts. And at this critical juncture for Diamond, we hope that Comcast will recognize the important and mutually beneficial role Diamond and regional sports networks play in the media ecosystem. Diamond directing people to go to Fubo, DirecTV, or DirecTV Stream to get Bally Sports channels. Interesting there, of course, because two of those three are streaming networks. Those were the things that were dropping them in the first place. But now two of the three places you can probably get these channels in the Twin Cities, at least if you have Comcast, is through a streaming service. So here's the thing. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal because, when places like Hulu and YouTube TV were dropping them, that was one thing. It was like places that have a couple million, 3 million subscribers, people that aren't long-term customers probably of these products, things like that. People are like, I'm mad. I'm going to go do something else now, or I'm just not going to have this anymore. But your cable customers are your core, long-time entrenched customers, right? These are the people who have stuck with price increases. These are the people who have stuck with, all the ups and downs of these whole negotiations of how this is all playing out. These are the people you don't want to make upset. These are people who you want to keep for a long time and have kept for a long time. If you lose Comcast customers, if Comcast no longer has Bally Sports North, and I've heard a lot of people already saying, well, if this is long term, that's it for me for Comcast. That's the only reason I have Comcast, is because I know I can reliably get the sports I want. This is a big deal for Bally Sports, for Diamond Sports, things like that. It was described months ago as can they survive if they don't have Comcast? So we will see if they can survive. And this was, they had been getting some good news lately. They just signed a new deal with DirecTV. They had signed a new deal with other cable distributors, ones that aren't necessarily big players in the Twin Cities, but are bigger players in other markets, things like that. But Comcast, like I said, 14.1 million subscribers nationwide, second biggest cable company in the United States, huge player in the Twin Cities. If this is a permanent thing, if they don't settle this, in a matter of days, I don't know where they go from here. The Twins fans are going to be furious. If you thought it was bad when the streaming channels dropped Bally Sports North, it is going to be fury if this continues, because these are the kinds of people who don't want to change. These are the kind of people who don't want to change how they get their TV. These are people who have decided, we're just going to pay this. We want this. This is fine. I don't love paying it, but you know what? I know I can get this. This felt like the safe thing, right? It's like, stay with this. This is where you're going to be able to get the Twins, all the sports you want. If you can't get it there now, it feels like the model, the disruption of the model, how you get sports. It feels like this is another major significant marker if this becomes permanent. So we'll have to watch this in the next few days, see if this is permanent, see if this is negotiations, things like that, see if they fall back in line and come to a deal here at some point and have the Twins back on the air. We will have to see about that. Right now, what we know is Comcast is off. Comcast has taken Bally Sports North channels off the air in the Twin Cities, taking it off I'm presuming taking Bally Sports channels off the air nationwide, and people are going to be upset. And you can tell by that Twin statement, the Twins are upset too. I want to talk Timberwolves today with Jeff Day from the Star Tribune. Maybe a little name, image, and likeness at the end too, because Jeff, you just wrote a piece on donors and kind of that whole what do donors do, but everyone wants to talk Timberwolves right now. And you, Jeff Day, in addition to being a editor, writer here at the Star Tribune, are somewhat of a Timberwolves super fan.
Yeah.
To put it mildly. What are you experiencing right now after this sweep of the Suns, which to me came out of nowhere, and now
getting ready to play the Nuggets again, which should be a fantastic series.
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me be here because I badgered you into this. I badgered you
in a good way.
Yes.
In a good way.
My feeling was that as opposed to people like Chris Hine or Royce, you're all the Lavelle, any intelligent person, Jerry Z, that you could have on to talk about Wolves. I want to bring that other side.
Bring the heat.
Yeah, and I knew that something was happening to me. I was at Target on Sunday, so this was ahead of Game 4.
Okay.
And a man was walking around with a Nikola Jokic jersey on.
Okay.
And I had this feeling in my heart that I was like, I'm about to go say something to this man. And I realized right then, I'm like, okay, we have crossed. I'm a pretty level-headed fan. I've worked here for 17 years. Sports to me have kind of, all of the passion around it has really diluted within myself. But something about this Wolves team, and if you've been a fan of the Wolves for as long as I have been a fan, and a lot of this, you can sense the energy in the entire it's like an organism. It's social media. It's public. That Sunday morning, I was driving down my neighborhood. One of my neighbors comes walking out in a Wolves shirt. We just pointed at each other, Wolves in 4. The energy is just palpable. And to me, this isn't just about the Wolves. It's like a Minnesota thing.
Yeah.
We haven't had this feeling, in my opinion, since 2009. That's when I go back to. I do think the Case Keenum Vikings years, there's this sense of maybe they could win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And there was destiny around it, especially when the Minneapolis Miracle happened. But
and then it didn't.
And then it didn't. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, it's like that team wasn't a Super Bowl team in the fully formed sense. And this Wolves team suddenly, to me, and really all season, it's like they've been laying the foundation all season. We are real. We can compete for the 1 seed in a hyper-competitive Western Conference. But I think all of us, when they got the Suns as the first-round matchup, were like, well, here we go.
Oh, well.
It was a good run.
It was a good try.
No way we're stopping Kevin Durant. And I've never been more surprised by the four games of a series.
Me neither.
Each game provided me with the same. It was Groundhog Day of joy.
Yeah.
The opposite of the original Groundhog Day. This was joy.
Yeah.
Groundhog Joy Day.
Groundhog Joy Day.
Because each game I was like, okay.
Terrible candy bar.
Yeah. Something's not going to go right was my feeling.
Yes.
And every game, it just went right. And in the second half of Game 4, when Devin Booker's going to the line 16 times and every call seems to kind of be going against them, and then to have that, it's like I almost get emotional. I'm joking, but no, I mean, it really, when Ant had that fourth quarter, you just can't believe what you're seeing. And I don't know of how many, it would have to probably be, and again, this isn't the World Series, but I'm not trying to draw direct parallels, but I didn't get to experience Kirby Puckett really in 91. You know what I mean? And that man came into that fourth quarter and delivered a win to the Timberwolves. And it was euphoric and just a moment that I couldn't have imagined, even I think at the beginning of the season, even midway through the season. It's like they've been, like I said, building this narrative that all of us as fans have been hesitant. And this is one of the things that's tricky about being a journalist at the Star Tribune.
Yeah.
I've only reported on the Wolves maybe once or twice in my life, and generally those have been common general interest. It's not like I'm writing about the team.
Right.
And I don't write about the team. And
Correct.
I don't like pseudo-journalism, fanboy, stuff like that. I am a fan.
You are allowed to like a team.
Yes.
Even if you work in the Star Tribune sports department.
I was at Game 7, Sacramento.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yes. But I was just there as a fan.
Okay, I was helping cover that.
Okay,
so that was different.
No,
I'm old.
I'm older. Illegally. Well, anyway. But anyway, to think about how long it's been since then, and the narratives that the Timberwolves have dealt with, and all of the players that have come through here, and all of the draft picks, and Derek Williams, and Johnny Flynn, and Jared Culver, Rashad McCants, and the fact that I loved and think about Nikola Pekovic, still.
That team that won 40 games and felt like, wow, they might have something
This
here.
is real. And Rick Adelman and David Kahn and Gerson Rosas and all of the leadership and all of the people that have that you have put your faith into.
Right.
And believed that somehow there was something on the other side of this. To all of a sudden be given that thing. And again, I don't know where they're going. I think the Denver series is, to me, I can't think of a better series in the playoffs. I don't care even if it's Denver and Boston in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
There's something about these two teams that feel like they have been circling each other ever since Tim Conley came over, ever since they started building this roster. And last year felt like this. I mean, the energy after the Nuggets won the championship, and all of a sudden everybody, I think it was Bruce Brown was the first one who kind of raised this thing of, our most difficult series was the Wolves.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, they didn't even have Nas or Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah.
And, and then this regular season, it's felt like they've been eyeing each other.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that it's a round 2 matchup
Yeah.
is so amazing.
Yes.
And it's like I'm going to try not to hold on too tight if they lose this series or whatever, but it's like it just feels like this has been predetermined. And for a Minnesota team, for the Timberwolves of all teams to feel like they were destined for a great playoff series, it has been decades since we've had this.
Yeah, it's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years since the only year before this that they won even a playoff series. Now, they won 2 that year, obviously,
yes,
and got to the conference finals. And if not for Sam Cassell's injury, a great what if, they might have gone to the finals. They might have won the finals.
Not just Cassell, but Trenton Hassel, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2 point guards. I mean, that went 6 against the Lakers. They weren't just pushed over. But I don't know. I think the reason that I am loving this moment is that the Wolves culture is a unique culture among fan bases.
Yes.
It's a sort of gallows humor group and also a cocky group, which I like. I like how cocky.
Yeah, it's a weird mix,
It's
right?
a weird mix.
Yeah.
Like those 2 fans who have been sitting behind the bench with the Devin Booker.
No, those are great. Yeah.
I mean, if you can't love that, you don't love sports. And also just, I'm not a social media person, but I am now a social media lurker of everything Twins. You had a great, this is so stupid to talk about, but you had this great Twitter post about like what a tough month for the Suns. Yeah, which is just great. And everybody's having so much fun. And Ant is, he's hard to describe. I think the way that he is with his teammates and the way that he plays, it's a natural high.
Yeah.
It's a natural feeling of childness for me. Like I watch him and I'm like, this is what it felt like.
It's joy.
It is joy.
He has joy playing.
And who have we had? I think about, Moss had joy,
right?
But Moss also had edge. And so far, I think that Edwards' edge, even to the opponents, is fun.
It's playful.
It's playful. It's like somebody it's like he wants to just talk trash all day.
Like he's always got like a half smile at least.
Yes, it's like, but that's how good he is.
Right.
It's like, how can you be that good and then have Kevin Durant come off after Game 4 and say he's my favorite player in the league? Now, granted, Durant knows that Edwards loves him, but anyway, I don't know what. You come at this from a completely different perspective. Right. I know that. But to me, the biggest part of this is that it is a team and a fan base that are somehow perfectly met for each other. They came together at the right time. And so when everybody talks about the construction of the roster, the management, Finch is the coach, all of these pieces that tie together, there's this part of me that thinks somehow it also was meant for this fan base.
Yeah.
Like any team can be good.
Yeah.
But to have this team be this good for this fan base is amazing.
The Wolves have only been great one other time.
Yes.
The 03-04 season. That was a great team. KG wins MVP. They get the 1 seed. They go to the conference finals. That was a great team. It built up to that. The year before that, they were good.
Yes.
But that was before they got Sprewell and Cassell. They still won 50-plus games. They had a competitive playoff series in the first round. Everything falls off the map the year after that. Ever since then, and even before then, they've had good teams, but never great teams. And Minnesota, as a market, doesn't tend to feel like we get great teams. You just mentioned the 09 Vikings. That feels like that was the last great Vikings team, 2017 notwithstanding. Yeah. That was a really good team, but that was a team that kind of felt like it was kind of like everything was breaking their way. The 2009 Vikings felt like a great team.
Yes.
The mid... the Lynx dynasty, that was like the closest you've felt in the last 20 years to a team that was just like, this team is just better than everybody else. But like the Twins, like maybe 2019 when they won 100 games and had the Bomba squad, but then that would have been like, it would have been like when the Twins had to go play the Yankees that year.
Yeah.
If they would have won that series. That's kind of what the Wolves just did now. It was like the team that you weren't supposed to beat, even if you were just as good or better on paper, but they were your nemesis, and you win that game, you lose that game, things like that. Like the Wild have never been great. They've had very good teams, but they've never had a great team where you're like, wow, this is definitely one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. They've had like top 10 teams, so like you just don't get that here for some reason, and you have only gotten it once ever in 35 years or so of Wolves history, and now this is a great team.
Yeah, you look at the 4-game series, and the first 3 were so emphatic. It was like it was just, and Edwards had that thing where he's like, as everybody's saying, I think it was Charles Barkley kept saying, he's a dog. I mean, that's what he looked like. He looked like somebody who just is ready to get out and play and take people down. But then that Game 4 was the back and forth. Somewhere in the fourth quarter, or maybe it was even the third quarter, they said that game had already had more lead changes than any game in the playoffs so far.
Yeah.
And
because the Suns have heart. They're not just going to lay down.
Absolutely.
It's a home game.
Yes. And I mean, that's the thing, too. It's like Booker scores 49, KD scores 33. But again, it's just this thing of a team hitting these little check marks of, are they capable in these moments that they've never really been in? To think that Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards have never been in a playoff elimination game. They've played those game 160, or I want to say game 163, game 83.
83 essentially, Game 82 against the Nuggets where they had to win to get in 5-6 years ago, and the play-in games.
Right. But these are not, it's just not the same
It's not the same.
It's not taking a team down and saying you're done.
Right. It's not a closeout because those were elimination for either team.
Yeah.
That's different.
And so anyway, I think you're exactly right about this nature of what is a great team and are we seeing that here? And one of the things that's so interesting about this is that it seems they have, unless some of these rumors are true flying around, that they have the core intact for another couple of years.
Right.
And that's the thing that like the 09 Vikings didn't have. There was this Favre-ian like what's going to happen here.
Right. And they tried to run it back and it was bad.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And Sprewell and Cassell, I don't think we knew that was going to be bad the next year, but it immediately started to fracture.
Right.
With this, it's like because you have an ascendant superstar.
Yes.
Right. Who is young. Mm-hmm. Who seems to be capable of somehow galvanizing every player on the team around him. And then you have everybody else under contract. You were the person who said, I think it was me and you talking about something, maybe Karl Anthony Towns earlier this year, where you said everybody's got their money.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was us. Yeah.
Yes, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he's going to get that Bruce Brown money. He's going to be like that kind of player. He's going to be this role guy who is showing how valuable he is on the court. So who knows if he comes back. But in general, who's under contract for a pretty long stretch here? Conley, Nas, Towns, Edwards, Gobert, Jaden. So your top 6 are long-term, locked in, at least for the next couple of years.
Yes.
And so again, this is what I mean by like, who knows what's about to happen here? There's this part of your brain as a Wolves fan right now that's like so immediate, so locked in. But the other thrilling part is this going to be the first time in Minnesota sports history that we have a team that is capable of long-term sustained success?
Right.
That has just been all those KG years. It was like they can compete, they can get into the playoffs, but it wasn't like this where you're like, are we building the thing that we've never had in this state?
Yeah.
Not since George Mikan was trotting around at the Armory. I mean, so
in men's sports at least, not
the Lynx
of course.
dynasty. Here's the thing.
Stands on its own.
It stands on its own, and I also think it's a different marketplace of player movement.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I
True.
mean? Like
at that point in the league, for sure.
The challenge in the NBA of building a dynasty.
Absolutely.
Yes, at that
Good
time
point.
for sure.
Good point.
I mean, who knows? Like, you can look at Indiana right now and go, they just got Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark in back-to-back drafts. You look at the Wolves. The Wolves had first-round picks, top 2, 3, 4, for a decade. It didn't matter.
And couldn't do it.
Didn't make a difference.
They were like always like one pick too low to get the guy they should have got. Like, you had the most lottery chances, but you didn't get Kyrie. You had the most lottery chances, but you didn't get this guy and that guy. And so you got Derek Williams. And
that's thing, even Towns, it's like, I think for a lot of us, it was like Wiggins, Towns, Levine. There was a moment where we thought, oh, could this be the foundational thing? And, Gobert is probably an underrated story. Suhan wrote a nice column about him.
Right.
The element of like this guy who was so lambasted last year and a franchise that was sort of mocked endlessly. And now you look at it and you think you kind of had to have him, you had to have Conley, you had to have the intelligence to know that it can't just be about this core of young guys. And I think now, in retrospect, about like the Jimmy Butler move.
Yeah.
And how clearly like those organizational leaders were trying to manufacture this exact same kind of thing.
Right.
And it just didn't work.
They took a shortcut.
You
can't take a shortcut.
But this in its way, in some capacity, is a shortcut because you're taking Edwards at 22.
Right.
I always think about Michael Jordan was my favorite player growing up. Jordan, it took 6 years for him to ascend. And remember, he came into the league at 21. So Edwards comes in, and it's like Edwards right now at 22. This feels to me like, again, early.
Yeah.
You don't think of a 22-year-old alpha.
Yeah.
You think of a 22-year-old leader of maybe a young, immature team, like when Andrew Wiggins has to try to be a leader, or Karl Towns has to try to be a leader.
Right.
But in that fourth quarter, there was a moment there late where you could hear him yelling at Mike Conley he was on the court, and they were getting ready to shoot maybe a technical free throw, the Suns were.
Okay.
And you could hear Edwards just, Mike, just hollering at Conley, gathering everybody up in a circle to take that moment. And it's like, I remember just sitting there going, man, they trust him in this respect. He trusts himself in this respect, and he is 22. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just not normal.
It is.
Anyway, see, I could just talk about, you could name anything about the Wolves right now. I haven't even talked about, like, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, how incredible he's been. Jaden McDaniels, who looks like there's nowhere on earth he'd rather not be than a basketball. It's like a man who looks like all I want to do is just it's like an internal fire that you're like, what? I want to know him so much more. I hope Chris Hine, his next big profile is Jaden McDaniels.
Getting something there, because it's
amazing. Something is inside of him that is fascinating. And Cat, who, it's lost because Edwards, of course, goes out and he scores 40 points and he literally dunks the Suns out of existence. But Cat was so phenomenal in that game. Phenomenal in the ways that I don't think are, when you think about like when he scored 61 this year, this was like control. My team needs some baskets. That 3-point, that and one. I just was, you couldn't have been more, I'm a lunatic. I sound like a lunatic. I understand that. But it's like you couldn't be more proud of a player you've watched all these years. Take that step. And so anyway, I went on, Game 3 was 9:30 start. Went to the sports bar in my neighborhood, the Tailgate. I hadn't been to a sports bar to watch a game in a very long time. Tailgate, it's kind of like almost under a bridge. It's where you want to be.
I know where it is,
It was packed. It was packed the whole game, and people are yelling, and people are, Nas hits a corner three, and the place just lights up, and you're like, I don't know this feeling. I don't know the feeling as a fan of all of this energy, and also of the fact that you're going, this is actually happening. It's one round. They're about to go have a nuclear war with the best team in the NBA until anybody says otherwise. The Nuggets are the defending champs. The defending champs.
They're the defending champs.
And the fact that it feels good is, I think, the most exciting thing, because they needed to show something against this Phoenix team to like get that energy for fans, I think, to get them to believe in it.
And I didn't know if they had another gear, because I felt like I felt like the first half of the year was better than the second half of the year. Like they were just playing better, more consistent basketball in the first 30 or 40 games than the last few games. Towns was hurt for some of that time, so you had some of that, and you're trying to figure things out and figure out rotations. Kind of everybody's just kind of like, let's get to the playoffs. We're tired. So I didn't know when you got there, did they have that gear? So that's what Game 1 told me. I was like, well, okay. I not only can they beat Phoenix in one game, they look like the better team. And then it was like, well, can they keep that going? Game 2, they can keep that going. Game 3, definitely, because that was a big one. Like all of them were important. Game 4 was important in this sense. One, you don't give a team that's beaten you 3 times in the regular season a chance to think that they could do that, because you win that one. Then it's just those 3 more, and you are part of the wrong side of history.
Game 5 gets very tricky.
Game 5 gets tricky. It's a little tense here. Then okay, you lose that one.
Back to Phoenix.
So it was important from that regard, but it was also just like, don't mess around. Like you're going to take their best shot. Can you beat a team that's giving you its best game, that's trying to stay alive, that's got these 3 veterans that does not want their season to end like this? And so that was like, all 4 of them were impressive in their own way. I think we kind of mentioned like check marks along the way. It's like, can you flat out beat Phoenix in one game because you haven't done that yet? Okay, you did that. Can you repeat that performance in Game 2? Yeah, won a different way, but you won. You won your second home game. Can you win on the road? Can you take control of that series? Yes. Can you close out a team that could still give you trouble if you don't close them out right away? Yes. So I feel like I looked at I think I got an email on like the betting odds are basically like,
what are they?
Like 2/3 on the Nuggets right now. They're like, Nuggets have like a 65% chance to win the series based on the odds. But I feel like it's closer to maybe not a coin flip, but I feel like it's closer to 50-50 than that. I feel like they're good enough to beat Denver, especially if the Wolves are at full strength, especially if Jamal Murray's still kind of like nursing this calf thing that's been giving him problems all year. He didn't seem to have a problem hitting game-winning shots against LeBron and the Lakers. So there's that. But I think this is going to be at least 6 games. I think it's going to be a great series. And, there would be no shame in losing this series. But if they win this series, I think they're going to the finals.
Well, what a statement. You just can feel it. And because I was just sitting there thinking, I'm almost certain they're going to win one of the first 2. It's like they match up so well with Denver, and I think they just, again, it's a strange thing to think about Edwards. It's like I don't know. I don't know whether this is fully real or if it's like the first step in real and there's going to be some, sliding back and then moving forward again. But it just feels like, he's going to be the second best player on the court. And the question is he going to be the best player? Is he going to be able to stand with the MVP and sort of make that step? I mean, this is the stuff that seems impossible to talk about because he's so young. Right. But we saw it with USA Basketball. Yeah. We just saw it on a court with Durant, Beal, and Booker, where it's like, I am the best player on this court. You know what was underreported? That game ends. Booker goes up for a layup. A couple of things, because I blacked out a few times during this game. I forgot that swarming defensive segment when Na got the steal directly led to the Anthony Edwards dunk.
It did, yeah. That sequence was nuts.
Those were fractured in my mind. Somehow they fractured. But anyway, at the end of the game, Booker goes up for a layup in garbage time. There's no time on the clock. He scored 49. And Edwards jumps up and just swats it against the backboard.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, that is who you want. You want the guy who's like, game's over, we've won.
That's some KG stuff.
That is some KG stuff.
And KG loves Andy. I don't know if you listen or watch his podcast. It's terrific. Him and Paul Pierce just going to town.
Did you see when he wore the finger? Yeah, the finger sleeve?
KG loved that.
Oh, my God. Who wouldn't love that? But I think you're right. Denver is the favorite in this series until otherwise. I mean, they're just too good, and Jokic is so phenomenal. I'm trying to think of who it was. I think it was Louisa Thomas who wrote a phenomenal New Yorker profile of Jokic this year. And it's like, this guy, I couldn't like a player more.
Yeah.
I don't think I could like a player more than him. He's just a one-of-one type player. But the idea of all of these pieces kind of coming together on the court and what's going to happen with them is what makes this so thrilling. I simply cannot wait. And I don't understand why there's 3 nights between Game 2 and
I don't
Game
either.
3. But anyway, the NBA knows what they're doing.
That benefits everybody, though. They could use the rest at this time of year. I think that was one thing that really helped them going into this series. Like, for the first time, they didn't have to play in the play-in. They could get a full week, get your legs underneath you, get the game plan going and stuff like that.
Well, now you got the coach.
I know.
What in the world?
That's like the...
They got to find some kind of like the Pope mobile is what I was thinking about, like a bubble. Like you put him in a bubble with a voice box, like a Hannibal Lecter type thing.
Yeah,
something.
Patellar, that's just that hurts.
Not good.
I mean, the collision looked, it looked bad obviously when he went down, but like when he's running into him, it's like, oh, he's just going to fall down and get back up. It's like it's.
I think we just don't realize how strong those men are on the court.
I know. Even Mike Conley, who's like the smallest guy on the court, could just absolutely flatten you and I.
Mike Conley could pick me up by my head. Yeah, I'm certain of it.
Even though he's the smallest guy on the court, he could certainly knock over Chris Finch, who's not a small guy, but
I felt bad for Finch.
I did too.
He seems like just sorry.
Yeah.
We also have the coach. It's like, again, I love all the Wolves coaches.
Yes.
I loved Ryan Saunders. I loved Flip Saunders. And all of these pieces that have come through. I loved Rick Adelman.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Rick Adelman. Mm-hmm. I thought Rick Adelman was the guy for us.
Flip.
Yep. So anyway.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Let's talk about your NIL story before we get out of here.
Okay. I like how the thing that I spent a couple of months working on
is it just
secondary thing.
Well, it's the Wolves are the Wolves. So I like this. I like the premise of this story. I like the execution. Basically, like donors. Do you give your money to the school? Do you give it straight to the athletes? Like, what do you want to support? Because they're being pulled in a lot of different directions with NIL. What did you learn through your reporting, and what are some of the takeaways people should take from this story now that's on StarTribune.com and in Wednesday's print edition, right?
Yeah. The thing that I was thinking about, is that for all of our reporting on this, it's like, to me, there was a natural tension between these two things that had to have been resolved over time in some capacity, but I didn't know enough about it. I met this donor, Katie Harms, who's featured in the story. She's one of these human beings that you meet where you're like, wow, you are a connective tissue in society. And she helped lay the foundation for me to have introductions and then to get to know some of the players on. I think we did a good job of robustly hitting every side of this.
Okay.
From the Golden Gopher Fund to Dinkytown athletes to the donors themselves, and trying to understand sort of how these diverse groups that all have the same interest are making this work.
Right.
And the biggest part of this is that, Dinkytown athletes is not part of the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
They are now tied to the University of Minnesota. They are the, partnered collective.
Right.
But it's not like they're housed within the athletics department.
Right.
And the other thing is the Golden Gopher Fund, which has been the fundraising arm forever for the U.
Right.
That is a large organizational structure within the athletics department and especially also within the University of Minnesota Foundation.
Right.
And there are livelihoods there. Mm-hmm. There are people whose employment is there. The people who are sort of these, I don't know, for better use of a term, like a handler of a donor. They build really deep personal relationships, and they have a financial tie to the donations that they can get.
Yeah.
It's like a commission of sorts.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So this isn't just about, hey, where's the money going? This is about people's livelihoods. It's about, deep personal relationships that have been built over decades in some instances.
Yeah.
Bob Kloss, who's the lead feature of this story, who's a really amazing guy and comes from a family that has been philanthropic at their core. All of these people are, again, deeply tied to the Golden Gopher Fund.
Yeah.
Because they have cared forever about the University of Minnesota and wanting to donate to that.
Yeah.
So Dinkytown Athletes comes along, and all of a sudden that's the A1 necessity.
Fundraising.
Yes.
Yeah.
It supersedes everything else because it's what athletes are most interested in. And it's how you need to build your roster.
Yeah.
And part of this, to me, is like, that couldn't have just been some simple transition, and it wasn't.
Right.
Donors had to learn about NIL more or less on their own initially. It was a lot of like independent research, getting emails from Dinkytown athletes and going, what is this?
Yeah.
And so I think now, where we're at in the story now is a much more centered place where the U, Dinkytown athletes, donors are getting in line.
Okay.
But that has been a process.
Okay.
And I don't think it's been necessarily the smoothest process. And I don't think the U is alone in that. This is part of what every college organization is going through. And who knows what the future is going to look like. I'm glad this story got published when it did because
I know, right?
We come out yesterday that the NCAA and their member institutions are trying to find a way to say, can we just pay players?
Right.
And create some kind of salary structure that would hopefully eliminate some of this. Because that's the thing. It's like Dinkytown athletes, I don't think I'm talking out of school here. It's like, I don't think they necessarily were like chomping at the bit, champing?
Chomping. It's spelled champing, but it's pronounced chomping. Yeah.
To get into this space. It's not like they were going, man, I really want to jump into NIL.
No.
They cared about
They have to.
They have to.
Yeah.
Somebody needed to do it. And so if all of a sudden they could get housed within the U or however that transition happens, and why would that work so well? Because the U already has the apparatus.
Right.
They have the fundraising apparatus. They have the connections. And that's the other thing. The U can't share their donor lists. They can't share their telephone lists. They can't do all of this stuff that would just hand Dinkytown athletes. So Dinkytown athletes, it's like this big swirling orb of information. And they're having to kind of piece it together. Now they're working together more closely. And so I think, the relationship has found its footing. But there still is this element of, if you're a donor and you're giving XYZ amount of money to the Golden Gopher Fund, and now Dinkytown athletes are saying, we need XYZ amount of money for this. I mean, how many people are just like ready to double that investment or ready to shift it? And how do you do that delicately when you have a close relationship with people at the Golden Gopher Fund? Because Dinkytown athletes gives nothing to the U.
Right.
Every donation to the Golden Gopher Fund is not just for athletics. It is, but also a chunk of that money goes to the University of Minnesota Foundation. It's part of this enormous ecosystem that keeps money funneling into this public institution.
Right.
So that's why it's like, in the story we kind of talk about the separation of church and state in a way. It's like that separation is having to blend because both entities aren't going to function well without the other. And so we'll see where it goes. But I think at the end of the day, I think everybody involved would probably agree that if there is a way to get this to where the member institution can be more directly involved and ease this negotiation practice away from these collectives, I think everybody would probably say, yes, please.
Well, and that's only going to, what feels like is happening right now is the schools that got the collectives going sooner or kind of like were ready, and those are probably the schools anyway that have bigger donor funds in the first place, like SEC schools or like, traditional powerhouses are going to have some of that, or just places that have like billionaires who are really interested in the program, places like that. But what's happened is you've created all these inequities now where it's like, if you can shift some of this back into athletic departments, if you can create some sort of structure around this doesn't really have so much to do with donors, just so it's the whole apparatus, but like it feels like it would make people just a lot more comfortable with where college athletics are heading. Like I have to imagine it's hard for some people to want to donate to college sports right now, period, because they're like, how do I know if these players are going to be here tomorrow? 100%. How do I, what is going on with college sports? Why should I even invest in what feels like a pro product to me now?
Yeah, and all of a sudden, I think, at least this is outside looking in, this isn't from my reporting, this is just a feeling.
Yeah.
That people don't like the feeling of this. I think that's a true statement.
Yes.
I think even when you land a player and then you lose a player, you're going through these transactional moments, I think fans just look at it as like, this doesn't feel like the sport that I love or the whatever you want to call college athletics. It just doesn't feel that way. And I'm sure that is a hurdle for donors and a hurdle for Dinkytown athletes to be like, this is about survival.
Yes.
And that's, that's a different proposition than, hey, we're trying to build we want to provide the best environment for our student athletes. We want to have the best training facilities. We want to take them on trips. We want to do this scholarship to support. It's like there's for better, and this is maybe the lie underneath the bottom of the NCAA, but there's a wholesomeness to that. It's like we're trying to create this environment that is going to provide a robust athletic and academic environment for our student athletes.
Right.
Collectives are saying, we're going to need this money or we're not going to have any players and we're going to get destroyed every day of the week.
Exactly. And they're just like, this used to be you signed a player, we got the national letter of intent, and obviously players got out of them at some point sometimes, or they transferred. Like it wasn't like players never transferred before, but it felt like this was a 4-year commitment on both sides. The school is saying, hey, come here for 4 years, or even 5 years if you're going to have a redshirt year. The athlete was saying, hey, I'm going to come here. If things go well, I'm going to stay here. We're going to build this thing together. Now it feels like you are signing a series of 1-year contracts.
100%.
And I think that is distasteful for people who like the idea of college sports. Pro sports fans probably don't have a problem with this. They like to see their team stay together, but there's a lot more natural free agency or team building in how that goes on. I just don't think college sports fans have an appetite for the way things are built right now, and that's neither here nor there with what donors are spending on. But I think,
but
donors are they're the biggest fans.
Donors are the biggest fans, and donors are also, to me, one of the fun things about getting to know these donors is that whatever you think of college athletics, there's something enlivening about being around people who are passionate about. It's just like me as a Wolves fan.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the Gophers. I have no connection to the U.
Right.
But my parents are heavily connected to Iowa State.
Yeah.
I know their deep passion. They go to bowl games. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm like, just stay home.
Right.
But anyway. It's
on TV, guys.
It's on TV. But they're passionate, and they love it, and it gives them a sense of community and a connection to their alma mater or to a place that they care about. Or like for Katie Harms, her daughter played college volleyball there.
Okay.
All of these kind of things where it's like it's a core part of their identity. And I think that's why they are this interesting nexus for all of this, because they're the people who before this were willing to give money because they cared about the program. Now they're trying to figure out how do we give money in this instance because we care about the athletes. And I don't think it's self-centered. I really don't. I think maybe it looks that way from the outside when you're having all this player movement. But to me, it's like I think everybody just wants to calm this down and find some way to say how can – you were saying that thing about it's like a series of 1-year contracts.
Yeah.
And you're like, the pro people are kind of used to that. But I'm like, 1-year contracts are sort of for the only a marginal selection of
the
your
rotational
roster.
players.
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
You want your stars signed for 5 or 6 years.
And I've long, for the past couple of months that we've been working on this NIL stuff, there has been this thought in my mind of, could you force a player to sign a contract at the college level? Say, like, if you get this NIL deal, you're committing to 2 years, or you're committing to 3. And if not, it's just like, so now it's just, again, more of a wilderness than even pro sports. And I keep going back to that more and more. It's like, you can't be more crazy than professional free agency. It just seems unfair to the athletes, you know? And many of these donors said the same thing, that at their core is a desire to figure out how can I help the university, but also how can we try to make this a good system for the athletes that are going to come here, because I think for a lot of them, that's what made them fall in love with the program, is that they had a good experience. They thought that it provided, you know, future opportunities or something that, you know, amplified their joy as a family or anything like that. So anyway, yeah.
Good timing for all this. I think we'll stop here. But one piece of news that we should report too is that the transfer portal window is closed as of today, for that spring window between April 16th and April 30th.
Now, hang on now.
What?
Because we just published this.
Okay.
I put this together. One transfer portal window just closed. Because May 1st is when, for me, you know me, volleyball opens.
Okay.
So get ready, baby.
Sorry. Okay. So what?
What just closed?
Yeah.
Football.
Football's closed.
And other portal windows are open. Bowling is open, I think, right now. No.
Bowling? Come on.
I'm serious.
Oh my gosh.
You think bowling? What, a bowler can't transfer?
I guess.
And then there was rifle. I think rifle's open now. Bowling's closed. The windows are crazy. I'm telling you. But football is about to close. And I believe
that I know.
I think basketball's also closing.
Okay. So one window closes,
Football
another
gets
opens.
2 windows. Okay, spring and fall sports get 2 windows.
Yes.
Winter sports gets 1 gigantic window.
Okay.
In total, every sport gets 45 days.
Wow.
Okay. And they all close at different times so that compliance officers aren't losing their minds.
Yeah.
So
okay. So that's good clarity.
Was it?
Yeah, it was good. It's good enough. I'm going to be watching the bowling transfer window now starting Wednesday. Jeff Day, thank you for all the perspectives on everything. We will be in touch for sure on this, and maybe if we get to a certain point, maybe if the Wolves get past Denver, I will take you up on the let's rank the
10 best and worst.
10 best and worst Wolves. Yeah, 5 or 10.
Yeah.
You can definitely get 10 worst. I don't know if we can get 10 best. 5 best or 5 worst Wolf seasons.
I'm pitching C-Mill, our Wolves team leader, that I need to go be a man on the street. If they get deep enough into this, it's like I got to get.
You're going to be a man on the street anyway.
Whew.
We might as well get some reporting out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks.
Great stuff from Jeff Day. 2 postscripts. Let's throw those into the cooler. 1, Chris Finch scheduled to have surgery today. We will see how he is able to coach on Saturday, see what kind of situation the Wolves can find for him. Ruptured patella tendon in that collision with Mike Conley Jr. at the end of Game 4 against the Suns. What a weird story that is. I hope he's able to be somewhere comfortable on the sideline, still able to do everything he typically does, strategy-wise, otherwise, and just a good guy. A great coach, good guy, hoping for a speedy recovery and a solution to how he is going to coach for the Wolves in this series. The other thing, like I mentioned at the jump, I watched a good part of that Knicks and 76ers game. Knicks had him. The Knicks were up 3-1 on their home court, ready to clinch, up 6 points, like 35 seconds left, something like that, 35 seconds left. Tyrese Maxey goes down, hits a 3, gets fouled, makes the free throw, so now it's a 2-point game. It's getting tight, but all the Knicks have to do now is just make sure they make their free throws. They miss one. Now it's a 3-point game. Maxey comes down, takes a 30-footer, a logo 3, drains it, tie game. Jalen Brunson gets his shot blocked at the buzzer. 76ers go on to win in overtime. It was an unbelievable finish. That series was over. The series was over. The Knicks were up 6 on their home court in the closing seconds, 30 seconds left. This series should be over. Now we're talking about a Game 6 back in Philadelphia, where Philadelphia has all sorts of momentum, all sorts of good vibes, and then potentially a Game 7 back in New York. So What a game, what a series, NBA playoffs, nothing like it. Check it out. Even while you wait for the Wolves for the next few days, there are a lot of great games and a lot of great series going on. Wonder how Thibs is doing. Tom Thibodeau, coach of the Knicks. He cannot be a happy camper right now after what happened in Tuesday's game, but we'll see how the rest of that series goes as well. That will do it for me today. Expect to be joined on Thursday's show by Harrison Wind. Covers the Nuggets, podcasts about them, writes about them in Denver. Should have a great conversation about the series coming up between the Wolves and the Nuggets. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Back at it again tomorrow.